Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Woldby-Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 258, the B-Ball Paul episode, as Paul Reed was selected 58th overall in the 2020 NBA draft by the Philadelphia 76ers. Not a bad use of a very late second-round pick by Philly, if I do say so myself. Now, in this last week, we did have one giant trade take place, pretty significant amongst the East and West being shaken up here, and that happens to be after 7 seasons with Oklahoma City. The Thunder have decided to move on from Lu Dort, who is one of the league's best perimeter defenders, and they dealt him in a 3-team deal that sends Dort and Ryan Nembhard to the Hawks, former number 1 overall pick Zachary Risacher, and a 2027 second-round pick going to the Mavs, with the Thunder receiving 3 future second-round picks. So, Bruce, what's your thoughts on the league's latest trade?
You know, you talked about how B-Ball Paul was a late second-round draft pick. Lu Dort was totally undrafted. He was, he came out of college. He made his mark as a perimeter defender with a limited offensive game. I mean, he's a great example of grit and persistence. You know, he was never a numbers guy, shooting just over 40% from the floor and just under 36% from downtown. But he started almost every game in his 7-year career. And he's still just 27 years old, okay? Along with Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker out on the perimeter, opposing guards and wings are going to face all kinds of pressure getting their teams into their offense against Atlanta next season. Now, while Dort figures to probably come off the bench behind Daniels at small forward, you know he's going to play a lot of minutes because he's exactly the kind of playoff-tested guy that a young team like Atlanta needs. So I'm happy for Lu Dort. I'm happy for the Hawks. OKC has so much behind him, they're not going to really miss him. So I think everybody wins in this deal.
Yeah, will be your thoughts on this trade?
Well, I disagree a little bit with Bruce. I think this is the beginning of seeing just how I agree that Oklahoma City has a lot of depth, but I do think they're going to miss Lu Dort. And I think this is the beginning of that window. Oklahoma City's going to be tested now. They gave away Aaron Wiggins in a salary dump a few weeks ago. Now it's Lu Dort, both going to the Hawks, as it turns out. So, they're beginning to try and finagle their roster a little bit. So they're going to have to do some maneuvering over the next couple of years to try and stay as a contender. They still got, obviously, the big horses, and they're signed long-term, so they still have that. But it's not a given that Oklahoma City all of a sudden is just going to remain the powerhouse in the NBA, or at least in the Western Conference. I don't think. As for the Hawks, man, I think they are now a serious contender in the East with this lineup. They can potentially be the best defensive team in the league now when you have this group. They were 10th in efficiency last season without Lu Dort, and now you add in him to this mix. They have a quality starting 5 now with C.J. McCollum, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, and their center Anoku, excuse me. So they have a really solid group, and now you add in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who could probably come off the bench or start, and Dort will come off the bench or whatever, along with the rookie Kingston Fleming, along with Aaron Wiggins, along with Ryan Nembhard, who they got coming over, who's going to be their backup in the future. And then Asa Newell, who was a first-round draft pick from last season, who had potential. Not to mention Buddy Hield. And they have a quality lineup all of a sudden here, and they are definitely considered, should be considered one of the contenders in the East. Think about this too, guys. I mentioned they were 10th without Dort last season in defense. This is the kind of team that Quinn Snyder likes. Quinn Snyder likes head coach. Defensive guys, 8 seasons at Utah as a head coach. 6 times they were top 10 in defensive efficiency. And 1 year they finished number 1, I think it was 2019. So, this is the kind of team he wants to have. He's got players. He's got a star in Jalen Johnson. I'm serious, man. They are a major contender in the East all of a sudden.
Yeah, I agree with you, World B. And I kind of want to go back real quickly here to OKC because as many may have remembered or may forgot about, on June 29th, the Thunder picked up Dort's $17.7 million contract option for next season. But even at that time, after opting into that deal, he seemed to be all but safe on the roster moving forward. This move is nothing more than a salary dump. I don't think this is a situation where they're looking to move off of Dort to make more room for somebody else. This was just a cap-cutting move to save money, given all the extensions that they've given out to their young stars there in Oklahoma City. They should be saving up to almost $100 million in future salary now that Dort is gone, and Dort's currently extension eligible here. So we'll see what Atlanta decides to do, if they're going to play out the season on an expiring deal or give them that extension up front here. But going on to Atlanta, I'm with you, World B. I really, really like this move, pairing Lou Dort alongside the great barrier thief Dyson Daniels. I mean, if Bam and Giannis are the league's best defensive front court, I think it's now safe to say that Dort and Daniels are the league's best defensive tandem on the wings, bar none. It's not even close, in my opinion. I mean, maybe Bridges and OG and New York have something to say about that. But the early season outlook for me with the Atlanta Hawks next season is I really like this team a lot. And all of a sudden, the Hawks are an absolute force to be reckoned with. I love the move to bring back CJ McCollum. He was tremendous for this team last year. Dort and Daniels on the wings, Jalen Johnson on Yakkin Yaxel in the front court. And they've got one of the league's best six-man in the league, lethal weapon, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who took a tremendous leap last year. This is a guy, obviously, who could potentially move into that starting lineup, but he comes in off the bench, man. That is a spark that Quinn Snyder can be using there. So despite massive changes to the Eastern Conference landscape this offseason, right now this is a team that I still think avoids the play-in tournament as long as CJ McCollum can stay healthy. Bruce, we haven't gotten to you on the outlook for the Hawks, so I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
The big headline for me is that it really did not take long for them to move on from Zachary Risacher. Yeah. I mean, he's a 21-year-old. He was the number 1 overall pick 2 years ago. He was all-rookie first team in his rookie year, finishing second in Rookie of the Year behind Stephon Castle. And they've traded him so quickly. Now, look, the Hawks, they got a lot going for them, no question about it, But defense was where they really needed to improve, and that was apparently the reason that Risacher was deemed expendable, because he was not considered tough when it came to rebounding, and he was considered soft defensively. So, but look, I mean, perhaps a change of scenery for him is going to unlock him, because you're not the number 1 overall pick 2 years ago, and you're only 21 years old now. And yes, his role was reduced last year, and I think I just kind of, indicated why. But I mean, I think he's gonna have a good future with his new team.
Yeah, he might, and I think this just boils down to a situation in Atlanta where you saw Jalen Johnson take a leap into an all-star caliber player last year. You saw Nickeil Alexander-Walker being one of the most improved players in all of basketball. Dyson Daniels remaining an elite perimeter guy. They have young guys that have blossomed and are ready to go right now. And Zachary Risacher is just not on that timeline right now. So, he does head to Dallas, a team that, is certainly priding themselves on development right now, with Cooper Flagg also being a number 1 pick there. One fun fact worth mentioning is that the Mavericks and the Wizards now have 6 of the active 14 players who have gone number 1 overall. In Washington, you got AD, Ayton, and Debanza. And now in Dallas, you've got Risacher, Flagg, and Kyrie in Dallas. So, World B, what's your thoughts on Zachary Risacher's fit with the Mavericks moving forward?
It really depends. You're hoping, if you're Dallas, that you're banking on what they saw the second half of his rookie season, or since the All-Star break. He was really developing. He looked like he was beginning to become a star, the number 1 type pick. I think it was 15 points a game after the All-Star break, over 40% on threes, almost 50% from the field. So you saw that was the potential you saw out of him. And this, it seemed like, he's going to be part of our future here. And it really dropped off last season, just not even 10 points a game. limited minutes. He wasn't a part of really the rotation come playoff time and stuff. He only got 22 minutes a game last season. And it clearly the Hawks are they're not in a development mode anymore. They want to be a contender right now. The East is forever apparently a wide open race, and they're looking at themselves the way they finished last season. Yeah, they got smoked by New York after taking a 2-1 series lead over the final 3 games of that series, and we know what happened in the final game. They were absolutely embarrassed. But they really feel like the way they ended the season, and we brought back McCollum, as you mentioned. They got Jalen Johnson, who obviously is a star in the making, and now you bring in a veteran like Dort, a young veteran, but a veteran nonetheless. They really feel like they have a chance to be a contender, and they're not going to wait. It just, Risacher did not fit into that mix anymore, and obviously you got to give up something to get something. I think it was a good opportunity for Risacher to go to Dallas and try and develop here. As long as he comes back to what we saw as a rookie and doesn't continue to regress, there is something called the sophomore slump. We've seen it before. And how's he develop going forward? He's on a pretty good team to do it with in terms of being able to develop. Probably will get more minutes going forward. And I think it's a good opportunity for him to remind everybody just why he was the number 1 pick a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I think at this point, with the Wizards and Mavericks tied with the amount of number 1 overall picks they have, maybe that will sway LeBron James' decision to kind of break that tie and join one of these teams, or maybe put your tinfoil cap on for a second. The Thunder just moved on from Lou Dort. Are they making room for LeBron James? Who knows? We'll have to see. But the one thing we do know, Bruce, is the fact that Adam Silver is getting very impatient with LeBron over his non-decision. Bruce, King James is holding up both the NBA and broadcast scheduling here heading into next season. So curious to get your thoughts on LeBron's slow decision-making process so far this summer.
2 weeks ago on this very show, I took a shot at LeBron James, whom I greatly admire, for his unwillingness to decide where he's going to play next season. I felt like he was giving lots of teams and fans false hope that he might join their team. And now, as you mentioned, Adam Silver's gone on record and is losing patience with King James for his lack of a decision. And as you pointed out, his delay is holding up the release of the schedule, early, marquee TV matchups, Christmas week, opening week, you name it. So I've sadly come to the conclusion that apparently LeBron feels he is bigger than the sport. And his agent, Rich Paul, said LeBron will not be rushed. Well, that's not exactly the type of guy who cares as much about the league as he cares about his own ego. And this is going to leave a bad taste in the mouths at the league office and other owners around the NBA. So why does that matter? Well, he has made some comments in the past about wanting to become an owner someday. And with this Las Vegas team and Seattle and God knows who else might become an expansion team, if it doesn't happen for him, this could be a factor in how that all goes down. So he may at some point regret that he decided he was bigger than the league.
Yeah, great points there, Bruce, and a very interesting perspective coming from you as our 4-time Emmy Award winner on broadcast. So love to hear it. World B, what's your thoughts on everything going down with LeBron?
Well, it's a little bit of mixed feelings for me. On the one hand, after all these years in the league and how important he's been to the league, he's certainly earned the right to make his mind up, take his time making his decision. On the other hand, I agree with Bruce. This is clearly just an ego thing at this point for him. There's only so many teams he's going to go to. It's basically It's Miami, it's Cleveland, it's maybe Philadelphia. There's some other spots where we can all point to a team and go, oh wow, he'd be great in Minnesota. Oh wow, he'd be great everywhere, obviously. But I think it's one of those 3 teams. And for me, I think it's Cleveland. At the end of the day, they would be a perfect fit right now for him in that forward spot because they're lacking in there and they have a lineup that is built to compete. But I agree with Bruce. I mean, we're not talking about the guy who about 20 years ago or so, gave us the decision. Yeah. And, that was a summer-long thing and just put everybody on pins and needles and everything. And all it turned out to be was a big ego trip for him. and he really caught a lot of flack for it. And it's one of those things that's a stain on his career resume. It's not at the top of the list. It's maybe not even in the middle, but it's there. And Bruce is right. I mean, the league has some time, but not a whole lot left, because the schedule traditionally comes out around the middle of August, and we're about 3 weeks away from that. And as Bruce mentioned, Christmas Day, opening night, you want to highlight LeBron, especially if this is his last year in the league, and they can't do anything until he makes the decision. So I think LeBron, in a way, kind of likes this, being in this position that he's in, where he basically controls what's happening next in the league.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how this ends up happening. I'm right there with you, World B. I've got Cleveland being the landing spot for LeBron. I think that's just where everything becomes full circle for the final chapter of his legendary career. But we'll have to see. This is just the latest in name of who we're waiting to see the domino drop. Prior to that, of course, it was our guy, friend of the show, Giannis. He was, officially introduced as the newest member of the Miami Heat last Thursday. And other than seeing the ear-to-ear smiles from both Coach Spo and Pat Riley throughout the press conference, Bruce, any other big takeaways that you had?
Well, they introduced Giannis on Thursday. Miami is all a buzz about their front court pairing of Giannis and Bam Adebayo. Now, I wasn't on the show with you guys last week when you talked about the Bam Adebayo Tyler Hero fight, but I was just wondering, when Bam punched him, did he go bam? I mean,
nice.
I don't know. Anyway, rim protection should not be a problem, but outside shooting could be. Miami's current depth chart has Tim Hardaway Jr. starting at the 2 next to Davion Mitchell at the point, but losing Hero, Norman Powell, Kasparis Yachakonis, it's going to put a heavy burden on Hardaway and Andrew Wiggins to make more threes. Now, that Miami's not done filling out this roster. There's just too many things that are still hanging out there. So could available free agents like DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook be on Pat Riley's radar? Now, neither of them are great from downtown, but for a team that's in win now mode, they might be useful for a season or two.
Yeah, I think of those guys that you mentioned, as the newest Heat fan, I would actually like Russell Westbrook over DeMar DeRozan, only because I like the demeanor that he brings. I think he'd be fiery off that bench, bring a little bit of energy. Not sure how DeMar DeRozan would fit into that as a mid-range maestro, like with Bam and Giannis there. Although some would argue that the Heat are lacking a closer down the stretch. I mean, Giannis has always had a closer next to him. Is Chris Middleton, Damian Lillard? Who's it on this Heat team? I think it's Giannis right now. I mean, you'd have to give him the basketball. Maybe a guy like DeMar DeRozan makes some sense there, but we'll have to see what Pat Riley has up his sleeve, because he's got to have something. You can't just bring in Giannis and then go radio silent. What's your thoughts, World B?
Well, I think part of it is as we just mentioned, he's probably still holding out hope that he can convince LeBron to come in and be one of the all-time great front courts here, potentially with the three, Bam and Giannis and LeBron. That's pretty formidable.
Totally.
But it's Giannis. As he mentioned on our show a couple of years ago, he's not in it for one championship. He's in it for multiple championships. That's where you make your legacy, and he started out there. And now he's got some footsteps to follow, and other superstars that have come to Miami over the last 20 years. We're talking about Shaquille O'Neal. We're talking about, I'm sorry, I'm slipping out, LeBron, of all people. I just mentioned him. Jesus. These guys won championships in Miami. Now the pressure's on for him to deliver a championship. He was the big trade, the off-season trade coming to Miami. Now he's got to deliver. And I personally think he's ready for, at least in year one, going to have another MVP-type performance of a season. It may be his last now at his age and his wear and tear on his body, but he's going to be geared up for this season and really put up some serious numbers, MVP caliber numbers. It's, as Bruce mentioned, do they have enough players right now to be a competitive team in the East? Bruce mentioned it. I think that backcourt might be the worst starting backcourt in the league between Davion Mitchell and Tim Hardaway Jr. So they really have some pieces to fill before they can really we mentioned it before in the show. I don't see him as a top 4 team in the East at present. Roster being as presently constructed.
Yeah,
we'll see if it changes or whatever, but they still have work to do.
Totally, lots of work still to be done. As far as my biggest takeaway from the press conference, I love that Giannis chose to leave number 34 behind in Milwaukee out of respect for his time and memories with the Milwaukee Bucks organization. I'll be honest, at first I was a little indifferent about the number change. 7 just looked weird on a jersey for Giannis after all these years of being number 34. But after hearing him explain his thought process, I love the logic behind it, the respect that he's paying towards the Bucks and all the Milwaukee Bucks fans. And then adding the 3 and 4 together while also noting that his mother was born on the 7th was a very nice touch as well. Bruce?
See, I thought he was trying to follow in the footsteps of Khalil Ware, who went to Milwaukee in that trade and who wore number 7 for Miami last season. But maybe not.
No, I don't think so. I think, if anything, Khalil Ware is trying to follow in Giannis's footsteps, because I saw today he's now working out with Hakeem Olajuwon, who on our show, that was when Giannis let the world know, hey, I'm going to work out with Hakeem later this summer too. So we were able to break that player development story for Giannis as well. So, all right, guys, we've talked about LeBron James not making the decision. For all this time, was Giannis going to be traded? Well, he was traded. Let's get to the next guy, a younger guy, not on the same level as these guys, but the $1 million question: will Jonathan Kuminga ever find a team? He was most recently linked to potentially signing a free agent deal with the Los Angeles Lakers moving forward. But then the Lakers ultimately decided to agree to terms with a defensive specialist in Matisse Thybulle on a 1-year deal that really doesn't leave them with enough cap room to now sign Kuminga. So, Bruce, what's next for Jonathan Kuminga?
His contract status is unusual. The Hawks declined to pick up his team option for $24.3 million. And although he is an unrestricted free agent, teams that are over the salary cap that want to sign him still have to work out a sign and trade with Atlanta. Now, the Lakers and Cavaliers have been mentioned as sign and trade partners, as have the Kings and Bucks. And there's really just 2 teams in the league with enough cap room to just sign him as an unrestricted free agent. And that would be Brooklyn and Chicago, neither of whom are interested. So Kuminga's future really depends on him lowering his salary demands or the Hawks accepting a lowball offer to let him walk. And considering the contentious, ugly negotiations Kuminga had with the Warriors last summer and his current status, his future is really uncertain. I mean, he's starting to look a little bit radioactive, if you ask me. Yeah. He wants somewhere between $15 and $20 million a year, which is good money, but he's not likely to get it right now. So who knows? I mean, this is one of the most bizarre situations I think we've seen in recent times.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. World B, can you make some sense of this?
Well, it seems on the surface to be kind of ludicrous to want to average salary of $20 million in the neighborhood of $20 million a year. It seems ridiculous for a guy who plays about 23 minutes a night, as he did last season with 2 teams. But then we're going to mention a little bit later, when you have Gary Trent's contract in your face, you're allowed to ask for a couple million more, even if you're Jonathan Kuminga, I think. The fact is, his numbers aren't eye-popping on the surface, 12.3 points a game last season. But then you look, like as I mentioned, he only played about 23 minutes a night between the Warriors and the Hawks. Shot okay, 46%. Really not good on the perimeter, 33%, well below league average. So, yeah, he priced himself out of the Laker deal, as Bruce mentioned, not wanting to go 2 years and $20 million. He thought he was worth more than that. It's fair to want that. I see 2 things developing for him. One, if he ends up with the Brooklyn Nets, which would be my dream, just from the unintentional comedic standpoint, just to have Julius Randle, Jonathan Kuminga, and Michael Porter Jr. on the same court together. That's just comedy waiting to happen. So that'd be my dream. The other one I think that fits really, we mentioned LeBron potentially going to Cleveland. Jonathan Kuminga fits in that spot as well, like a glove, because they really need front court help at that forward position. depth chart really has Max Strus as a small forward right now. Really, he's another guard. So you could put him in there with Evan Mobley at the forward spot, and really now Cleveland almost has to make a move. Either it's LeBron or it's Jonathan Kuminga to me, because we're talking about the Hawks. We have other teams here. The Miami Heat have upgraded. The 76ers have upgraded. Other teams are, the Knicks are the defending champions. Ring the bell there.
There we go. There it is.
There you go. The Pistons aren't going anywhere. So the Cavaliers window, if they don't, they want to be competitive in the East and be a contender, a real contender, they got to shore up some things. It looks like they're going to sign Harden, even though he's unrestricted. And then they got to get the roster set to compete with these teams if they're really trying to win a title, which they can do. But having one of these guys come aboard really helps their roster and really makes them at the same level as, say, the Pistons, as the Knicks, as the potentially 76ers or the Hawks.
Yeah, no, I think at this point in time in the offseason, I think someone might get a great deal, a bargain on Jonathan Kuminga, because at this rate, I feel like he's a player that is probably not going to go for what he thinks he's worth, and he's going to have to prove it for a year elsewhere. Another team that I've kept on the top of my list as well, maybe the Los Angeles Clippers. If this Kawhi Leonard deal does go through, maybe there's an opportunity for him to go to LA, stay in California, and play on a team that has obviously got playoff aspirations in the Western Conference. So we'll have to keep an eye out for Jonathan Kuminga, but don't think any dominoes are going to be falling until LeBron makes his decision. All right, and let's go ahead and wrap up the 2026 NBA Summer League out in Las Vegas, as Yaxel Lendebourg led the Dubs to the 2026 Summer League title, taking down the Memphis Grizzlies 94-90. Yaxel was named the championship game MVP with his 21-point, 10-rebound performance, and talked some smack to the Grizzlies in the process, didn't he, Bruce?
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I'm here for it. Absolutely. I mean, look, he led Michigan to the NCAA championship in March. He was the 11th overall pick in the June draft. And after beating Memphis in the championship game, Lendebourg had this to say about the Grizz. Their butts got tight. They puckered up. Some of us are built for the moment and some aren't. Now, I took that as a direct bash on Cameron Boozer, whom he clearly does not like. And, that goes back to college. So listen, that's some pretty strong trash talk for a rookie. So I'm going to be giving him a brand new nickname right here on the 48 Minutes podcast. Yakkin Yaxel, because he's yakking already. Right out of the box, he's yakking like crazy. And if he keeps talking smack like that against veterans during the season, he better keep backing it up. Now, who knows? Maybe he's learning it from his veteran teammate, Draymond Green. Who knows?
They're already yakking. Those two are already going at it up through their podcast. I mean, Draymond Green says he's been, going at it about him, making jokes about him being a Michigan Wolverine, and Yaxel saying, I'm not going to put up with that because I'm the defending champion over at Michigan, and we got a great program too. So it's an interesting dynamic heading into the league. This guy, talking smack with fellow rookies and also Hall of Fame teammates. Worldby, what's your thoughts on the Dubs winning the Summer League or Yakkin Yaxel?
Well, first of all, the numbers you talked about that he put up there in the championship game, 21 points and 10 rebounds. He did it in just 23 minutes. So that was pretty impressive too. The numbers alone would be great, but do it in less than, basically half a game, or less than half a game, is really impressive. He averaged about 15 points for the Summer League and it's almost 7 rebounds. He's really, if he can translate that over, he can continue to do that once he gets to the real league. Well, he really helps out the Warriors in terms of providing some depth and really that transition. They have a potential solid player for years to come with a guy like this. He was really impressive. The whole Summer League in general, to me, I was really a number of impressive performers. We talked about before the draft. This was a really solid draft, we figured. And the Summer League made it seem like, it's really good. Never mind the Banjo putting up some numbers. My favorite player was Caleb Wilson. just in 4 games. He really came up with some highlights. He put up some really solid numbers. He looks like somebody who the Bulls are going to build around for a while. So the whole summer league in general, I thought was really impressive.
Yeah, huge success this year in NBA Summer League. Lots of stars performing out there. Furries of the Milwaukee Bucks was another guy that stood out to me in the games that I watched. But give the kudos to the Golden State Warriors, who took home the Summer League title, and Yaxel getting off to a great start in Golden State as a young developing player. That, this is a team that needs some fresh legs, so he looks like he can provide that. But Bruce, while we're on the topic of the Golden State Warriors, we got some news about Steph Curry, who is set to become the first active player with his own exhibit at the Hall of Fame. I know you're a guy that very familiar with the Hall of Fame and very active with them in the summertime. So curious to get your thoughts on this breaking news.
It is really cool. First of all, is there anybody who doesn't admire and respect Stephen Curry? I mean, he is like the ideal teammate, player, human being, husband, father, cook, you name it. I mean, this guy has just got it all going on. And the fact that his style of play has really revolutionized the professional game. I mean, look, guys used to shoot threes before Stephen Curry, but guys never shot threes like Stephen Curry.
Wow.
And it really, the game, a lot of people don't like how the game has changed. Personally, there are parts of it I like, parts of it I don't. But you cannot deny the fact that Stephen Curry has turned the NBA into a outside shooting league. And the fact that he's being honored with his own exhibit as an active player, I think it's just super cool. So good for Steph and good for the folks up in Springfield for honoring him that way.
World B?
Yeah, I agree with Bruce. I mean, he not only is the greatest shooter in the history of the sport, he, as Bruce mentioned, he revolutionized this era of basketball. It's led by him. This era of 3-point frequency, and it's not enough to just take the threes. He's made them as more than anybody else. He shoots about well over a 40% clip. So he just basically has made the 3-point line to the point where we talked about moving it back at times. There were certain seasons we talked about, oh, maybe they should move it back. Maybe they should cut it off here. He's one of the most unbelievable athletes, players we've ever seen here. This is good for the Hall of Fame. It really brings in the current players. I agree. Bruce mentioned, some people don't like this era. I'm a person that prefers a different era, but I love this. I have a ton of fun watching these games. And Steph Curry is one of the reasons why. If I had to name 10 players I'm favorite to watch all time in my as a fan, I don't know where Steph Curry is on the list, but he's on the list.
Yeah, I like this exhibit for 2 reasons. Number one, I think it helps attract interest to the Basketball Hall of Fame, a place that I still haven't even been, but really want to go to someday. And 2, I mean, Steph Curry's grown the game, so why not have the game educate people that are there at the Basketball Hall of Fame on a future Hall of Famer who has had such tremendous impact, not just on the NBA game, but the world game, whether it be Team USA or how other players across the globe are approaching basketball these days. Steph Curry has had a tremendous impact on that. So if anyone was going to be the first active player to get an exhibit, Steph Curry is definitely right up there as one of the most deserving. So props to Steph Curry.
And just one note, since you kindly mentioned that I'm involved with the Hall of Fame and some things. Yeah. If any of our listeners or viewers are in the Springfield area on August 5th, which is a Wednesday, I'll be hosting the Hoop Hall Hangout that day with our friend of the show, personal friend, Bruce Bowen, the 3-time champion with the San Antonio Spurs. I got a lot of great questions I'm going to be asking him, some of which we covered on this show, some we didn't, but he's a great guy, and if you have kids and you're not doing anything on a Wednesday, August 5th, come to the Hall of Fame that day. The Bowen interview is going to happen around 1:00. If you're admitted into the hall, you buy a ticket, you go in. There'll be bleachers set up on the Court of Dreams, and if you or your kids want to ask Bruce a question, I'm going to walk amongst the crowd with a microphone, so the kids get to talk to Bruce. Parents can even talk to him. So shameless plug, but August 5th, Bruce Bowen at the Basketball Hall of Fame with me for the Hoop Hall Hangout.
Very cool. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of laughs as well, because that's what I remember most from our sit down with him here on 48 Minutes is he's got a nice sense of humor and likes to share a good laugh. So sounds like a lot of fun, Bruce. Now, speaking of a lot of fun, you missed out on some fun last week as we talked about this Gary Trent contract brouhaha that continues to rock the NBA as the league continues to investigate how they might or may or may not handle this. But since you missed last week's show, I got to get your initial reaction, Bruce. I mean, seeing Shams break that news that Gary Trent, of all players, was getting $64 million over 4 years, what were your thoughts?
He agreed to that contract after making the league minimum last year and basically sucking. I mean, he was terrible last season. This whole thing raised eyebrows all around the sports world and certainly around the league. So as you mentioned, Ross, the NBA is investigating the Bucks for a salary cap circumvention since the team and Trent may have colluded on taking a low number last year with the promise of a large number this year, which certainly he got. Okay. Yeah. So that would be a collective bargaining agreement violation. So if the league determines that it was, the Bucks could face some pretty serious penalties, including the loss of a future first-round draft pick. And look, Milwaukee's in a rebuilding mode, so losing any first-round draft pick, even 4 or 5 years down the road, would be a huge setback. And look, I don't know how they're going to prove it. I don't know that there's going to be a smoking gun. But boy, this feels like one of those when there's smoke, there's fire deals. Because under no logical system would Gary Trent be getting a 500% raise after being a non-entity basically last season.
Yeah, I like what World B. I think World B summed it up perfectly. I mean, isn't this penalty enough? You're signing Gary Trent Junior $64 million deal. Like, do we need to hand out any more penalties other than the fact that now they're going to have to live with this contract? I mean, that could be enough for it. But speaking of last week's show, World B, and your wise words there on Gary Trent, one thing we didn't get to was Kawhi's trade to Toronto still being on hold, and it's a week later and it's still on hold. So I know this was a topic we were hoping to touch on last week, but we ran out of time. So let's go ahead and revisit this with the $1 million question that still seems to remain. Why on earth would the league allow Kawhi Leonard to be traded in the first place? Couldn't they have put a stop to this deal long before it was agreed upon and reported by the media?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I have written down. Did the NBA not see something like this coming? I mean, how do you not? You're investigating this guy, and he gets shipped off, and it took them weeks before they, at least a week or whatever before they even put it on hold. So I mean, he was introduced, and as a member of, not introduced officially, but he showed up with all signs indicating he was with the Raptors again. So. It's a really weird situation. I personally think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, he's going to end up in Toronto. It's just too many logistics to not, to void the trade or whatever. But I do think the Clippers are going to face some sort of punishment, as Bruce mentioned, for the potential punishment for Gary Trent Jr. I think something similar is going to come down for the Clippers, maybe stronger. In terms of fines, in terms of draft picks, in terms of whatever they want us to lay down on them to be a deterrent for pulling this stunt again. But I do think the deal is going to go through, and which is good for everybody in the end. Especially Toronto, to try and get Kawhi back as they try to compete for a title with a lot of other teams in the East.
Bruce.
It's funny that you mentioned that you think the Clippers might still be subject to some sort of punishment, but I read a piece by John Hollinger in The Athletic. John is a former executive. I mean, he knows, all the kind of whys and wherefores of stuff like this. And he's saying that he thinks Toronto is holding off on completing the trade with LA because they don't want to assume the risk of any potential punishment handed down to Leonard, if that endorsement deal did violate the NBA rules. Now, both teams, according to Hollinger, want the trade to go through, but it's going to stay frozen until the investigation wraps up. So, we'll see what happens. But there is a question as who is penalized if this trade goes through before the investigation is complete. Sounds like that's not going to happen, but another wrinkle to a very bizarre story.
Yeah, very crazy stuff going on there. And to be honest, I mean, you got to think, I feel for the guys involved in this. One guy in particular, Brandon Ingram, of course, the most well-known name in this deal. Like, poor guy doesn't know where he's going to live next year, where his family might need to be. It's not a good look for the NBA or either of these teams and the players involved. I mean, it puts everyone in a very awkward space. Now, speaking of the Clippers, Bruce, you wanted to share a quick, fun story to wrap up tonight's show. A story that was written on ESPN by a friend of our show, and it's on the top rookie of the Clippers, Keaton Wagler.
Yeah, Wagler is showing early leadership skills. As you mentioned, my buddy and former colleague Ohm Youngmisuk of ESPN.com wrote a piece detailing how the Clippers Las Vegas Summer League team decided to do like a bonding session where they went as a group to an escape room where they had 1 hour to figure out how to use clues to get out of the room, which is kind of 3 rooms in 1 room. So I've never been in one, but it sounds like it's pretty challenging. But Wagler, who's only 19 years old, said it was at least the 5th time he's done an escape room. So he used his experience to size things up. He's kind of held back at the beginning, sizing things up. And then eventually he took control of the group. He led them out of the escape room with 13 minutes left. So they had an hour. He did it in 47 minutes. Wow. And in addition to escaping from the room, they also achieved the additional goal of stealing a painting. So nice job by the 19-year-old rookie showing early leadership skills for Coach Tyronn Lue's squad.
World B, do you want to make the escape room joke about the Clippers and Keaton Wagler, or do you want me to? Can you help him escape? Can you help him escape all this investigation, do you think? I mean, we'll have to see. But with that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week. Be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.